Turkey insists its military jet shot down by Syrian forces on Friday wasn't spying, but rather on a training mission. Syria maintains it was protecting its sovereignty. The incident adds up to pressure piled on Damascus as NATO says it's now going to investigate what happened. Let's go talk more about the incident and the possible ramifications for the region. I'm joined by John Rees from the Stop the War Coalition in London. So how dangerous do you think the situation is? NATO is now set to investigate. Do you think this could lead to more confrontation?
Well, I certainly think that we're witnessing the drawing in of the major powers into the conflict in Syria. We've seen Hillary Clinton's speech warning the Russians about the provision of attack helicopters. We've seen the British send a ship back supposedly carrying such helicopters from around the coast of Britain back to Russia, and now we see this incursion into Syrian airspace by the Turkish Air Force, which is uncontested, by the way. They admit they were in Syrian airspace. They contest whether or not the plane was shot down while it was still in Syrian airspace. But what this all adds up to is a Syrian conflict, which is now becoming a conflict between the major powers, and that's more dangerous even than the war in Afghanistan or in Iraq, where the major powers were more or less aligned on the same side.
Now, Ankara claims the jet was in international airspace when it was shot down, though it has conceded that it strayed over the line into Syrian territory. Do you think Damascus was correct in its actions?
Well, I have no idea, and none of us can know for sure, because these will be things which are held within the military establishments on both sides. But it seems to me that recently wreckage has been found within Syrian waters. But the trouble with these incidents is it's not so much who was exactly to blame on one side or another in this incident. It's the political capital that will be made out of it. We all know that such incidents can either be passed off and apologies accepted and life goes back to normal, or they can be made a casus belli. They can be made at a moment when these conflicts escalate. And I imagine that given the stance of the United States and of the UK here and other Western powers towards the Syrian conflict and towards the other powers engaged in this struggle, that's what we'll see.
Now, there are always those conspiracy theorists who say that this could be a deliberate provocation. What do you make about that?
Well, I doubt it. I mean, it is, of course, theoretically possible that what the Turks were doing was probing Syrian airspace to see whether or not they would react in this way ahead of a more substantial intervention. But I doubt it. I think actually this is probably an error. But the point is that when international relations become this tense, when the diplomatic atmosphere has been heightened to this degree, such errors become part of a process, a part of a wider process, which is more than accidental, which is deliberate, and that's the danger in the situation.
And finally, briefly, if you can, the peace process in Syria seems deadlocked at the moment. What do you think needs to be done to break that stalemate?
Well, it could be broken in a number of ways. The Assad regime is a tyrannical, dynastic dictatorship, and I hope that the Syrian revolution manages to end it in the way that the Mubarak regime was ended by the Egyptian revolution. But the danger is that the revolution has become divided, that some of the forces within the Syrian revolution are now calling, and have been for some time, for Western intervention, that some of them relying on arms supplied by Turkey and Saudi Arabia, and that this will both divide the revolution and make it more possible for the Assad regime to carry on, and at the same time involve the Western powers and their local proxies in perhaps an even greater conflict than we've seen either in Iraq or Afghanistan. And that would be a very, very serious development indeed.
All right, John Rees from the Stop the War Coalition, thanks very much for your time.